Marianne Moore brings to modernism a curious effervescence, a peculiarity, and idiosyncratic style that is sometimes hard to spot in the broad generalization of what high modernism is. She is often paired with, and it's instructive to do so, with her almost exact contemporary T.S. Eliot. They were both born in St. Louis. She was just 10 months earlier than he was at it. And their careers marked off the parameters, you could say, of what modernism in the 20th century could be. And she is often considered one of the leading lights of the movement as a poet, as a critic, an editor, a translator. She kept to the United States largely, settling in New York. She went to Bryn Mawr for college and then moved to Greenwich Village and became kind of a local character there. You see lots of photos. She could be seen around town, walking around in a tri-corner hat. She was a peculiar little character and a minor celebrity within the neighborhood. But the work that she produced gives modernism a much broader character than can be seen in the somewhat rigid difficulty and, let's face it, somewhat unpleasantness of T.S. Eliot's verse. The work that she did produce was very influential. She fell under the influence originally of the Imagist school. She was a friend and colleague with Ezra Pound, H.D., Elizabeth Bishop, and W.H. Auden. She and Eliot had a warm-ish respect for one another, and T.S. Eliot, who could be rather chilly with his praise, often said that she had made some very real contributions, and that is high praise indeed from the high priest of the age. Moore's collected poems came out in 1951, and it won both the Pulitzer Prize, the National Book Award, and even also the Bollingen Prize for Poetry. This is a major event in publication in the 20th century. And it includes a heavily edited version of the following poem, which is titled very significantly Poetry. The original of it came out in 1919, and it was an early production of hers, first published in magazine form, and then came out in a book form. And throughout her career, throughout many iterations, she was changing it, she was editing it, so that it basically ended up as a fragment of its former self. She got it down to the first couple lines, and then said, "Okay, that's a good version." But even along the way, she had been tinkering with it and changing lines and readings and phrases along the way, and it was hard to really get like a conclusive, this is the authorial final version of it, until she got it down to those first couple of lines. And she very famously said about that when asked, omissions are not accidents. When a single poem goes through 11 different versions, you can see a mind at work, which is largely part of her progress as an artist, but also the fluidity of the movement as a whole. You can be forgiven if you think that T.S. Eliot was always birthing out his work in a final form and etching it into marble as he went along, because it just has that kind of permanence about it. But Moore is bringing a little bit more of a flexibility to it and saying, well, it could be this or it could be that, and hey, why don't you try this, and this might sound a little better. And you get a sense more of the flexibility of the medium, of the impermanence of poetry, which is part of the modernist point writ large. So there's a little method to the madness. When she did first write it, it was it was part of a very high profile collection when it came out in 1919, an anthology of works including poets such as Robert Frost, William Carlos Williams, Wallace Stevens, Vachel Lindsay. The whole book, the collection, was edited by Alfred Kramberg. These are significant figures in this movement at a very early stage of it. So she was right in the mix from the start, and she worked on that throughout her life. And this one poem, again titled "Poetry," is fun. I too dislike it. You gotta love that opening line. I too dislike it. There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers that there is in it, after all, a place for the genuine. Hands that can grasp, eyes that can dilate, hair that can rise if it must. These things are important not because a high-sounding interpretation can be put upon them, but because they are useful. When they become so derivative as to become unintelligible, the same thing may be said for all of us, that we do not admire what we cannot understand. The bat holding on upside down or in quest of something to eat, elephants pushing, a wild horse taking a roll, a tireless wolf under a tree, the immovable critic twinkling his skin like a horse that feels a flea. The baseball fan, the statistician, case after case could be cited did one wish it. Nor is it valid to discriminate against the business documents and school books. All these phenomena are important. One must make a distinction, however. When dragged into prominence by half-poets, the result is not poetry, nor till the autocrats among us can be literalists of the imagination, above insolence and triviality, and can present for inspection imaginary gardens with real toads in them, shall we have it. In the meantime, if you demand on one hand, in defiance of their opinion, the raw material of poetry in all its rawness, and that which is on the other hand genuine, then you are interested in poetry. It's a great couple of lines here. And you can see it as that. It sounds like fragments. When you look at it at the page, those short, kind of jagged lines come across as fragments, and you can reflect on the fragmentary nature that is modernism generally. And also the chief complaint, she approaches it from a position of, okay, I know poetry, especially difficult modernist poetry, is kind of a pain. I too dislike it. And it is also largely pointless. Why do I have to know that? These are the chief complaints of everybody who's ever had to open a book and get their way through all this stuff. What the hell are they talking about? There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle, that beautiful word that just diminishes the idea of it. All of this fiddle. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers that there is in it, after all, a place for the genuine. She's carving out a space and saying, yeah, all right, there's a lot of stuff out there that you don't have to like, and there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't very good to begin with, and there's a whole world of reasons why you shouldn't be compelled to read this stuff. But if you just pay attention, you can find some access to it and maybe actualize it into something useful in your life. And that's a key idea there, that it be useful, that it be something that awakens your imagination, that it awakens your awareness. And then she goes through all of these little moments, these little images of what good poetry is made of, and the tiny images, largely from nature and ordinary life. The bat holding on upside down or in quest of something, elephants pushing a wild horse taking a roll, tireless wolf under the tree, the immovable critic twinkling his skin like a horse that feels a flea. And you gotta wonder what these stuffy people are like, and she is sort of taking a shot at her own people. Remember, she was a critic, and she obviously knew an awful lot of them, and they can, maybe get a little irritated and bothered by the idea of bad poetry. And she is just deconstructing her idea of what poetry is to make it something more meaningful, to make it something more significant. And yes, she throws out, if you look at the footnote, she throws out the references to Leo Tolstoy and Yeats and saying, well, they had their ideas, and okay, I know these things too, hint, hint, but maybe you don't necessarily have to. And then she serves up that other really great line, imaginary gardens with real toads in them, something visceral, something unique, something that just conjures an image and gets at you, real toads, and you can feel like the mucus on the toad or something. I don't know if toads have mucus. I'm assuming maybe they do. But the idea of it is powerful. The sensation of it is powerful. And she is carving out this one little area and saying, okay, this is genuine poetry. All that other stuff, all the highfalutin words, all of the big quotations and the cultural references and all of these obscure things that maybe no human being should actually bother to know. Maybe what's really important is just those little moments that grab you, that get you, that bring you an idea that poetry has value, that there are moments that can be illuminated through the spoken word. And so she defends it. She makes a case for it. She brings it out as useful against its harshest critics. Now, significantly, the final version of this is just those first few lines. In her final version of it, in the so-called complete poems, comes out in 1967, just a few years before she passes away. She comes out with just those first few lines. I too dislike it. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers in it, after all, a place for the genuine. And you can feel that torturous, the way she is enjambing the lines, breaking up words, and it feels very choppy and iffy, and it just calls attention to itself, and then ends right there. And maybe you remember the earlier versions, and that's living on in your imagination, because you get to the end of For the Genuine, and there's nothing. And you're recalling it, or maybe you're not even recalling it, but maybe you're feeling like there is the ghost of something there, like an amputated limb that the patient can still imagine they feel. And it adds something. She doesn't go through the catalogs of all the images and all of that stuff. She just drops all that and she suggests it. So she goes from the earlier version that offers up a lot of these suggestions, a lot of these images, a lot of this great language, and then at the end ends with just the absence of those things, the conspicuous absence of those things that somehow we feel. That is a masterwork of poetry.